good. Thanks. Thank you, though. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome to the Q Station. And so folks know this is a wonderful partnership between primarily the Air Force Research Labs and the City of Albuquerque, as well as Randy Trask Group, NM Trade Alliance, and some others. So we're just kind of showcasing that here today. What we are going to talk about is a little bit around COVID. There's some items, especially around reopening, even a little bit on masks. And then we're going to talk about some of our, it's related to COVID in the thesis, but it is a way in which we're trying to combat the population loss that we saw in the last census. I shouldn't say loss, but the flattening of our population growth. And so for that, our Director of Economic Development is going to speak to some of that. So let me touch on a few things with respect to broad categories of public health and COVID. First is a little bit in terms of vaccination update. And we're going to have a little bit of slides as well, but just at the high level, want everyone to know that, you know, we continue to reopen areas of the city as fast as we can. Sometimes there are limitations around staffing, so as a reminder, we are also having staffing shortages, just like many of the other businesses, especially at the blue-collar level. And so sometimes that can be a constraint. And sometimes we also have to negotiate certain rules, work rules, et cetera, with our unions, which is part of city government and has been. But believe it or not, a lot of returning to work and opening has to do with unwinding a lot of policies that we put in place for the last year. And they do require it to go through the appropriate labor boards and agreements and so forth. So we are working as fast as we can to reopen as much as we can. And as you'll see, there is a lot open, so that's the good news. Now, we are well on our way to our 60% goal in terms of vaccinations. And so want everyone to know, we'll go through some material, but basically we show the Albuquerque metro area at our estimates at 57.7. So we'll round that up to 58%. We are almost at that goal of 60. So we're very excited about that. We are ahead of the state, which is coming in at about 42% fully vaccinated right now. So let me touch on some of those, but I do want to mention, I think first and foremost, we are doing mobile walk-up vaccination units. And so this is something we've had for a long time, but especially now that 12 and over can get these, this is the easiest way to get vaccinated because you literally just show up. There's no scheduling, there's nothing. We'll walk you through the paperwork, and these are happening now through the end of the week at Cesar Chavez Community Center. And then it moves, that's why it's mobile, and then May 31st to June 5th at 5401 Eastern, Southeast. It's kind of over by Gibson. And also then on June 7th to the 12th at John Marshall Center. And these hours and locations are all available on our website, and they're all weekdays noon to 6:30 p.m., so you can join after work actually. And the Saturday days are 9 to 1:30 p.m. And if you're under 16 and coming without a guardian, you do need a signed consent form, and you can get that at cv.nmhealth.org. And we're also hosting a walk-up clinic this Thursday, and so we're welcoming a really cool guy, Stan Cottrell. He is inspired by Forrest Gump. He's 70 and he's running across the country, and he's going to be in Albuquerque. And so we're pairing that with a vaccination clinic and some announcements regarding our city marathon program, actually. So that is going to be at Veterans Memorial Park, which is on Louisiana. And again, that is going to be Thursday. Okay, now our multiple departments are working on that. All that information's on our websites, and we'll be putting it out too on social media. So let's talk quickly about where we're at in terms of our numbers. I'm going to pull this out to walk through a couple of slides here. And so bear with me as I manually flip through this. So here's our sort of dashboard where we're at. And again, as I mentioned, we're at 57.7 on our unofficial numbers. That's excellent. And our goal, of course, is 60. And so we think we're going to be in a very good place next month, just next week, where hopefully we'll be able to hit that goal in terms of gating criteria. Now, if we also look at, again, the city-by-city comparison, we've been demonstrating, and this is going to lead into what we think is a reason why people should move back here or move to here. We've been demonstrating that we are a healthier city during the pandemic. And the numbers show that throughout the pandemic, we have either been 1 or 2 in basically every of the key categories that matters. And so you see some of them here. You look at currently, this is the snapshot of the number of positive cases. And you can see across, Phoenix, Los Angeles, Salt Lake, El Paso, we're in the top 2. Again, percentage of positivity rate, we're in the top 2, although those numbers now, some of them are getting so low that metric's not as helpful, but we'll show you we've been tracking this over the time. And then you look at the total per capita who've been vaccinated, and again, you see us at the top end of the list. And these trends have held throughout the pandemic. So I'm not going to dwell on these too long, but Albuquerque is the thick black line there. And so in this graph, you want to be at the bottom. And you can see we're at the bottom. We were the best halfway through, and then we were second best the rest of the way. And again, that's cumulative confirmed cases. And so positivity rate, this is sort of the same story again. Throughout the pandemic, we've just done an outstanding job. And it's a credit to our state health department, to our hospitals, and to everyone, frankly, the public, for just working with us to try and keep everyone safe. And in a little bit on our vaccination rates too, because a lot of people ask about the other, percentage of 16 without at least 1 dose. And so you see this number, we're doing very good on that 1 dose count as well in the metro. So I think some encouraging information for sure for us, and it is a good segue into our Home for Life campaign. So I'm going to tee that up in just a moment, but I do want to touch on masks, because I'm getting lots of questions about masks. So, first and foremost, I would just acknowledge, there is mask confusion and ambiguity, and it is the case. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And there are a couple of things driving that. One is there's obviously CDC guidance, there's also a state public health order, and there's also individuals' own vaccination status, and there's also the fact that a lot of, whether they're businesses or government entities, have to update their own HR policies. So, in general, of course, I think we know sort of the guidance, which is that, if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. However, there are exceptions to that in the CDC and in the public health order, and especially for certain professions. So again, these are federal regulations, but for example, transit drivers, you'll see they are required to wear masks. Airports required to wear masks. Interestingly, zookeepers required to wear masks because of transmission to animals. I'm not here to debate that. I'm just telling you that's the rule. And yet the public doesn't have to wear masks at the zoo. Again, presumably if you are vaccinated. And so anyway, we're in flux right now, and we're transitioning back, and we just ask for everyone's patience. And I know at the city, we want to give, some clear guidance that at the biopark, the zoo, pools, parks, open spaces, community centers, athletic courts, civic plaza, and the convention center, the rules are you do not have to wear a mask if you've been vaccinated. But again, I want to mention there are slices of professions that under state or federal guidance do have to still wear masks. For example, buses, the airport, Sunvan, airplanes, and youth programs in New Mexico under the state guidance and licensure rules do also have to wear masks. And I know it's the last day of school for my kids at APS, but they've had to require masks too. So, I mean, the main thing is I think just try and respect whatever signs on the door. Try and respect each other regardless of what situation you're in. And I think in not too long, all of these regulations hopefully will fade away. Now, let's switch a little bit to economic development. And we know that as part of our full reopening, we were really building towards a economic recovery. And for us, we also know that consumer confidence is always something that's sort of top of mind. But we know that we're using every tool available to essentially build back our city's economy. And you've seen this from our construction projects to lift up working families during the pandemic, our New Deal style infrastructure investments, $200 million that we've pumped into libraries and road repairs all over the city and community centers. This also means the effort that we've done now to try and help small businesses, even this Q station, or our minority-owned and women-owned business support services that our city offers that we built during the pandemic. Or it's our recruiting efforts, Netflix, Orion, Amazon, Intel, all of these in central Albuquerque that are literally now 6,000 plus jobs announced in the last 2 years that are coming to the Duke City. That is more than have been announced in the last decade. So we are very optimistic once these all come online. And even last night, we were at Bueno Foods, or yesterday, talking about the expansion in the heart of Morelos for one of our legendary family-owned businesses. But we also understand what the census data showed us. And the interesting thing about that is, first, it was a little old. So just as a reminder, it came out in 2019, so before the pandemic year. And what we've seen in real estate data is that, obviously, everyone knows this, like houses are, one, not for sale because people aren't moving as much out of here. And when there is a house for sale, it gets scooped up right away. So the numbers have drastically been changing during the pandemic. And we believe that's because we are a healthier place to live. We know that our kids are starting to move back home, or our kids are starting to stay here and go to UNM. And this is driving these real estate factors that are much more up to date than the census. So our economic development department decided to really piggyback on this. And they started working on this back in October. And it's hitting just right in terms of opening up, in a sense that we put together a campaign with one of our great local marketing firms, and it's called the Home for Life campaign. And what it means, obviously, is we think Albuquerque should be your home for a number of reasons. And it should continue to be your home for life. And that life part is a real strong reference to health and to the fact that whether it's hospital beds or it's open space or it's safety during a pandemic or availability of a vaccine, or it's the ability to work from home, or it's our empty office space downtown where you can still get an urban environment but have space to spread out. All of these come together in this concept that Albuquerque right now is a better place to make your home for life. So to hear more about this program, and by the way, this is a sort of rejuvenation of the Boomeranger program, which some of you might remember. That was tried a little bit, but this is much bigger and more improved. So for more on this, to attract workers here and retain our best and brightest, our Director of Economic Development, Cynthia Harmio.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everyone. Yes, a golf clap. This is really exciting. My first press, live and in-person press conference. Well, as Mayor mentioned, I am the Director of Economic Development for the City of Albuquerque. And as you'll hear, we've received very promising early data and have expanded our campaign from 4 cities to 11 cities. And with a number of factors, as you heard from the mayor, the U.S. population from both suburban areas and metropolitan centers to amenity-rich mid-sized cities, Albuquerque is well positioned to benefit from that shift that we're seeing. With our low-cost living, our superb climate, recreational options, our beautiful, diverse culture, a highly effective response to COVID-19, and easy accessibility through our international sunport, Albuquerque is really in a position to capitalize on all of those trends that have really been accelerated by the pandemic. And that is why we launched and have expanded the Albuquerque Home for Life campaign. Now, despite long-term census data, as you can see here on this slide, even before the pandemic, Albuquerque ranked number 6 in top cities people chose to move to in 2019. And as personal priorities shift, so do populations. We see, those that are looking for new cities, they're seeking shorter commutes, more convenience, room to breathe, and a lower cost of living. Other cities like San Francisco, New York, Dallas, which have been hotspots in the past, are now actually losing people due to population. Natural disasters, traffic congestions, cost of living, and so many other factors. Now, this really spells opportunity for cities like ours, like Albuquerque, but it also means a more competitive environment and the need for highly targeted marketing, promoting a standout brand like Albuquerque to residents and businesses alike. Now, Albuquerque, as I mentioned, is really poised to meet this current moment in time, thanks to many of our strengths. I mentioned the great outdoors. We're blessed with 4 seasons, a wonderfully temperate climate, and 300+ days of sunshine per year. Albuquerque really is a dream for outdoor enthusiasts, those hikers out there. The city is home to an array of recreational options, from hiking, golfing, and skiing, to collegiate and professional sports, to simply taking in the surrounding beauty. Affordability, with a median home price of about $200,000 and monthly rents averaging between $800 and $1,000. Albuquerque's cost of living is consistently below the national average, as you can see here. And not to mention a low-risk contemporary city with a clean, stable environment that, as Mayor mentioned, and I mentioned earlier, responded to the pandemic promptly and effectively. Given Albuquerque's unique positioning and opportunities, this campaign concept was developed to highlight the city's, again, healthy, resilient nature, affordability, and high quality of life, and our unique sense of place. Now, we're calling this initiative the Albuquerque Home for Life campaign, and the project, as Mayor mentioned, it targets we've got 2 target areas. Number 1 is remote workers who can do their job from anywhere, and former residents of the city, also known as boomerangers. Now, our messaging focuses on Albuquerque's not only our clean air, not only our abundant sunshine, but our vast number of parks and spaces like this, here, the Q Station. Now, we recently expanded our efforts to San Francisco, Denver, Phoenix, Dallas, Seattle, New York, Boston, and Washington, D.C. And right now, briefly, I'd like to show you one of our promotional videos for the campaign. It's a little lengthy. It's been, sliced to fit social media and other outlets, but I'd like to showcase the entire video. Please oblige me. It's coming. It's coming.
Like Albuquerque, because it's been a huge change in our home life with our family. There's just a wide open kind of spirit here.
Albuquerque is a treasure, literally. I mean, it's not far to land to check at the moment. Albuquerque is I think, hidden gem for remote workers. One of the biggest benefits for me coming from Los Angeles to Albuquerque has been the cost of living. And with remote work, it's really lucky. You can connect to lots of people in different places. And so you don't necessarily need to have a home base in a major metropolitan area. And so I think from a business perspective, it's a really, really big advantage.
I would say in New York or LA, where there's more of a priority on surviving. So here, there's more of a priority on what kind of next.
I'm in spaces where I know I'm making real impact and change, and I think that that's something that anybody should kind of have open arms to. Many people who are from LA or New York who have come out here looking for exactly what we've already found. Albuquerque is one to watch.
Watch out for Albuquerque, it's happening. So I'll just share some early successes with you all. Now, program performance measurements show interest and engagement above national averages, for advertising metrics. Now, in just 6 weeks, through May 19th, the campaign's digital ads received more than 20 million impressions and resulted in nearly 90,000 visitors to the Albuquerque Home for Life website. Total impressions since the campaign launch are more than 26 million. Now, these strong early metrics and major announcements, as the mayor mentioned, from Intel, Netflix, Orion, Amazon, among others, indicate that our efforts to bring jobs and workers to Albuquerque are starting this decade on a far stronger path for growth. And I'll close with this by saying this is just a component of our economic development recovery strategy that we will be rolling out in late June, early July. And with that, I'll hand it back over to our mayor.
Okay, thank you so much, Cynthia. And very exciting program, and I do want to give credit to Esparza Marketing and their team. Everyone always asks who the agency is who's helping us, so that's who it is. And they've done a great job so far. And we started this in Houston, Portland, and Los Angeles. And so the target cities are a mix of, really three things. Number one, actually the number of Burqueños who live there, right? That's the boomerang aspect, but also the propensity of discontent with working from home. So the issue is in a lot of cities, if you have had to work from home, or if you want to work from home going forward, you are extremely concerned about things like traffic and places to spread out because you get tired of being in your home. And so you can see how we compete in a really, really strong way against some of these cities. And Cynthia mentioned these other cities that we're expanding to. Okay, and also want to mention, of course, that our cultural diversity plays heavily in this. All the new marketing data shows us what we already know in terms of one of our strengths is our diversity. And so we're proud of that, and we want others to be able to enjoy that too. Okay, I think with that, we'll certainly be here for a few questions. And I think Lorena's going to walk us through those.
Yeah, do you guys have any questions? I'll start with Annalisa. She's from Care TV.
Hi. Just with the early numbers of this program, I guess how do you down the road measure its success of people actually going beyond just the website and coming here?
Sure, it is a social media based campaign, so those are sort of the metrics that we have. And I'll let Cynthia answer your question kind of more directly, but we do eventually want to see these numbers. They should hit our city, the real estate figures, because they actually track who's moving from where. So, ironically, the most accurate data all comes from the real estate industry. And we should see the results of this, and it usually comes quarterly. We're hoping to see that in the fall real estate results that are nationally, and that tracks who's moving from where.
Thank you, Mayor. And in addition to that, so if you visit the website, you'll find that we're asking visitors to take a quiz. And so we're tracking data in that regard. And again, so success for us means that individuals actually make a commitment to move here. But we're working with Esparza Advertising and all of our real estate organization partners to track that data. So success is they make a commitment and they move to Albuquerque.
Hi, Nancy, KOAT.
I always feel like I'm the person asking to be the best on their own. So WalletHub just came out with a report saying that Albuquerque or New Mexico is one of the worst places for millennials. The report came out today. How do you want to respond to that? And then do you feel like crime isn't as a factor to people at the flat growth? Because we always hear
You want me to take them along? You want to start?
Sure.
Take them along?
Well,
Go ahead.
you know, one thing about the WalletHub, we're happy to look at the methodology. I do know WalletHub is all over the board, and sometimes we agree with their methodology and sometimes we don't. So I also know that Forbes just came out with a tremendously great ranking for us. I forget exactly the category. So, you know, I think there are rankings that come out that are good and bad, and we're grateful for the good ones, and we got to work on the ones that highlight challenges. And so Cynthia can add on to this too, but you know, crime's our #1 priority. It always helps to reduce crime. There's no doubt that's part of the puzzle, but we can't just sit around and wait. We've got to market what we're already good at and then fix what we need to fix, and that's the way to move forward.
I'll just add, I mean, we're in this space that that really exists for those millennials who are venturing into space technology, directed energy. And, you know, as we enter into recovery, which we have, we're going to see, we're having conversations with younger professionals every day that are looking for exactly what I just demonstrated and displayed in the PowerPoint. And so, yes, again, to Mayor's point, we do have challenges that we have to address. But again, we can't wait, you know, any longer. We have to get into recovery mode. And you'll see as we roll out our recovery plan in late June and early July, it addresses a lot of those concerns from the community.
And then Will from, KOAT.
Yeah. So, you know, great PowerPoint and everything. We're looking to drop people.
Yes, it's a lot of work, but you know, whatever.
Hey, people get paid for that. We're looking to draw people to the state. But do we have any information on what kind of toll last year's taken on current residents and any numbers we have about people and businesses leaving the state?
So the best place to go for that data really is the commercial real estate brokers. And so that slide which we shared with you comes from them. And so we can certainly send you that information. But that's really the experts who track that kind of data. And so ours is all going to come right from them. But we do know that over the course of the pandemic, right, you saw, I think New Mexico was second even to Idaho in terms of net movers in. And so, again, that 2020 data looks very promising and the opposite of what the last decade looked like.
Mm-hmm. Just to the first part of the presentation about pandemic-related information. As you said, we are in a transition, and so I'm just curious what that means from the city standpoint in terms of public health order enforcement or and that kind of thing. If you could speak to that at all.
Sure, so we continue to update the city's emergency public health order to more or less match the state. And so we've been doing that for almost 18 months now. And so that's also what we're doing. Now, when there's huge changes like this, it does take us a couple of weeks to actually reissue that emergency order and so forth. And so for us, either if we're not this week, next week, we'll be right in line with the state for all city government.
Would you say you're like redirecting resources at all, you know, from enforcement or inspections to other?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of what was normal?
So look, we are drastically returning to normal city business. People are coming back to work physically. We're going to open City Hall in a couple of weeks. We're opening all our pools. We're opening the theaters. All of these people were repurposed doing things like PPE Our code enforcement folks are doing code enforcement for buildings. They're not doing public health order enforcement. Same thing, our fire department is getting ready for 4th of July as opposed to working on masks. And so we've shifted almost all our enforcement efforts, unless there is something absolutely egregious. And so I think certainly by July, but if not in a couple of weeks, the city should be back to normal in terms of everything open that should be at whatever capacity is allowed, like 75%. And then we are right now having plans to just be 100% open with no regulations. And we're aiming for July 4th for that.
We have a Zoom
Yeah.
question.
So this is from Jessica the Journal. Has this been money for new or returning residents to upgrade the what anything is the administration doing to ensure the city remains affordable and accessible for people who are able?
So we are trying to keep an eye on affordability, whether it's housing or accessibility to different services. And I think the positive news is that for the last decade, we have been so stagnant. We're starting from a very good place. But we continue our commitment, for example, to affordable housing. So we've got 200 new units that are supposed to be going up downtown. We continue to actually have very good standards with respect to all of our subsidized housing and development efforts. All require different quotas for supportive housing. And even our master plan communities like Mesa del Sol and Winrock, all of them have supportive housing and reduced rent type of options in them. So the good news is the city has very good ordinances to protect affordability. And so we'll see how those play out. Obviously, if that becomes a stronger issue, then we'll have to have some stronger ordinances.
Any other questions?
I don't know if you've done any kind of studies about how many people we are hoping to draw back to Albuquerque through this campaign. As someone from Houston, I'd rather live here than Houston weather-wise. But do you have any numbers as far as how many people we are hoping to get to, combat the slow growth, stagnant growth from the census?
I mean, Houston, anyway, I used to live in Houston too. The food is good there. Got to say the food's good there. Houston's underrated. But come on, the traffic, the heat, anyway, no contest. But in terms of numbers that we're expecting,
Sure.
go ahead.
I'm happy to share. We can share some more detailed data with you. Happy to exchange contact information and get you that information. The full plan, happy to share that. You're welcome.
Yeah, sure. There will be a link with the press release we'll be sending out after.
Mm-hmm.
And we have another Zoom.
Yeah, and there's a little website and splash page up already. You can fill out the survey. It's kind of cool, actually. Yeah. It's just like 5 questions. What don't you like about where you live? Traffic. Okay, let's see. I think there was one more.
Yeah, Zoom question.
Yeah.
Jessica, speaking of returning to normal, is the city planning any summer fest or 4th of July?
So as part of returning to normal, I'm pushing hard to have lots of events this summer. I think they're all going to be a little bit different, but the good news is we're going to have them. So we are working on a similar version to last year where we have some distributed 4th of July firework displays at parks around the city. The difference is this year you can actually go to them, but they're meant for you also to just be able to view from your driveway. So it'll be kind of a hybrid of what we did last year and what we'd normally do. And we'll see in the next coming weeks, but we are still open to something at the Balloon Fiesta, but we need to make sure that that's all getting worked out. But what we will not be having is huge, large concerts. And the reason for that is just the lead time for booking. We're actually totally open to them. So if somebody does want to come play, we're okay with that. But to bring in those large acts like we usually do for Summerfest, it's just not in the cards, and that has to do with their touring schedules and the promoters and things like that. But we are going to provide, I think, at least half a dozen different, whether it's food truck rodeos or gatherings in parks with fun things for the kids and so forth. So stay tuned, and we'll be announcing those in June.
Anyone else? Okay.
All right, thanks.